Am I the a-hole for not telling my parents that the event they were missing was my wedding? Buckle up, guys. This will be kinda long. So I, 27 female, have a younger brother, Mike, 21 male. He is the definition of a man-child and a mama's boy. Always complaining, always expecting others to bow to him, just overall an a-hole. Ever since he was born, my parents fussed over him for everything. He's not special needs or had a traumatic birth or anything of the sort. He was just born, and my parents completely discarded me. My mom, 50 female especially. She went from a loving mother to one of those boy moms that people make fun of on the internet. My father, 50 male, still showed me love and support, but has always been too much of a coward to stand up to my mother and let me win at least once. The only one who stood up for me was my grandpa, 76 male, who always called my parents out on their BS and never liked my brother. I remind him of his late wife, my grandma, and we have a very special bond. But he lives on the other side of the country and I could never see him often. Mike knows how our mom prefers him and loves to shove it in my face. Because of this and his behavior, we've always been at odds. He's spoiled, a brat and an awful human. I can't remember how many times I ended up in trouble for things I did better than him or for things he framed me with. His only talent are his football skills. He won a scholarship to a nice college out of state. My parents didn't spend a dime on my education because apparently my fund had been used to cover expenses after a fire, just for me to discover years later that said money were given to Mike to buy a car and a house. It's at public university that I met Lucas. He was the first person I was really drawn to there. Of course, I met new people who are now my dearest friends, and thanks to them and Lucas, who was my best friend for years before we got together, I managed to move out of my parents' house. Now both Lucas and I are well known in our fields and have very good salaries. Now to the main issue. Lucas proposed to me a year ago. We're very private people, so we didn't post it on social media or anything, and when I told my parents, they dismissed it with "that's nice." I'm starting to think they downright didn't listen to me at all. We decided that we wanted a nice but simple ceremony and reception with our friends and relatives. Lucas convinced me to invite my parents and brother, but they never responded to the invite. And whenever I went to visit and began to talk about my wedding, without mentioning it was a wedding, my mom would always speak over me and my brother's accomplishments and wild adventures. At one point, I got fed up with it and interrupted my mom to tell her that there was an event I was planning to organize, whose date was immovable. She told me that they couldn't attend because my brother was playing the last game of the season that very same day and wanted them to be there. This favoritism didn't surprise me. They missed my ballets, shows, and both my high school and university graduation for things about him. At this point, I wanted to be petty. I told both my parents that it wasn't a problem to miss this event, purposely omitted the fact that this event was my wedding, and didn't insist further. Flash forward to a few weeks ago, I got married. It was perfect. My family, Lucas's family, and our friends were all there, and we had a blast. My grandpa was happy to give me away, and it was just perfect. My relatives asked me multiple times why my parents weren't there with us. I was honest, and simply said that they had my brother's game to attend and couldn't come. They gave me a few looks, and my grandpa was visibly angry for a while, but otherwise nothing strange happened. After the reception, Lucas and I left for our honeymoon and were phone-free for the whole duration of the trip. But once we got back, we discovered that a crap storm was welcoming us home. I turned my phone on and was unable to even unlock it before a storm of notifications popped up. Most of them were from my mother and brother. Mike called me all sorts of nasty names and insulted me because apparently one of my paternal aunts posted the photos of the wedding on Facebook and captioned it with a very obvious dig at my parents, especially my mom, for missing the wedding. The post apparently went viral in my parents' community, and they've been publicly shamed for their mistreatment of me. It also turns out that my grandpa personally visited my parents to go on a tirade to shame my father, his son, to the point of tears. And this seemed to be my father's breaking point, because he was so distraught for missing his only daughter's wedding and for his father's disapproval that he finally rebelled against my mom and is threatening divorce, unless she makes it up to me. I think that's the reason why my mom has been spamming my phone with messages, at first insulting and threatening and then downright pitiful, full of begging and pity parties. Now I'm at home with my husband deciding how to approach the situation. Most of my relatives, even those I didn't invite to the wedding, reached out to apologize for what I went through and to claim they had no idea this was happening at home. Can't blame any of my relatives. They all live with my grandpa on the other side of the country or in another state. But my mom's sisters and friends are belittling me for not telling my mom about the wedding, because now she's inconsolable at the thought of having missed my wedding. Personally, I think she just claims that to save face, but I'm not sure. The latest messages from my father and mother seem extremely saddened and hurt for missing my wedding. Now my family's divided on 3 fronts. The majority who is sticking by my side, my maternal aunts shaming me for hurting my mom's feelings, and my maternal grandparents who are adamant that I forgive my mom in light of her atonement. My best friends are telling me not to listen to them. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Edit. Thank you so much for the feedback and love. It's overwhelming. I'm going to address the popular questions here. 1. I did inform my parents about my wedding. I sent traditional on-paper invites to all my guests and was notified that all invites had reached their addressees. I did not receive any answer from my parents and Mike, a few very distant relatives, and some people on Lucas's side. I did reach out to all of them through message to double-check, and those who hadn't replied told me they couldn't come. I asked my parents and brother via text, but they didn't respond. I was left on red. Knowing them and given all the things I had to plan, I didn't bother insisting. 2. I didn't repeat the date of my wedding because I had already been told there was my brother's game. Plus, every time I insisted on highlighting my celebrations to get an answer, I was always told that it wasn't that important and to not be pissy and bother, because some things were simply more important than me. At this point, I think it's fair for me to not insist anymore. It's not worth the effort. 3. I didn't keep my wedding a secret. I avoided telling my parents that it was my wedding to see if they would be interested in the slightest, but surprise, surprise, they weren't. Despite this, I did openly talk about my wedding with my aunts and uncles. My mother was in the room with us a few times when I discussed venues or dress shops with my aunt, the Facebook post one, but sometimes my mom was on the phone and other times she was just chatting with other people. She never paid attention. When I talked about it during reunions, she smiled and said, "That's great, dear," and then would change the subject. Radio silence on Dad and Mike. 4. I kept in contact with them because, well, all the times I tried to go no contact in the past years, I've been harassed. I tried after my high school bachelor's and master's graduations, to which they never bothered to show up for reasons involving my brother. Every time, I was shamed for daring to turn back on my family by my parents, my brother, my maternal aunts, and my maternal grandparents. I think the turning point here is that, all those times Lucas wasn't by my side. We started dating a little after my last attempt to go no contact, and now that I have him here, I feel more confident in my stance. But before that, I wasn't this confident. As I already stated, all my paternal side lives on the other side of the country and wasn't aware of how they treated me. I did try to expose my parents once, at 14. My aunts, uncles, and grandpa reprimanded them. They faked being sorry. And then once home, I got the beating and gaslighting of my life for lying. After that, I kept in contact regularly with my paternal side, but omitting my parents' abuse out of fear, which to be honest still haunts me to this day. Only Grandpa knew, but he was always threatened to be alienated from me if he tried anything. 5. My parents and I are not from the same city. I live in a city an hour drive from my parents' small town, and they don't know my new address because once my brother tried to break into my apartment to steal some cash, and my mother backed him up, claiming that siblings share their goods. Now I moved, and I'll be sure not to tell them where I live. 6. My parents didn't buy my brother a car and a house before he even started high school. They bought him a car for his 16th birthday and a house near his college when he began freshman year. They didn't spend the money of my fund right away. They just lied to me to use it later for my brother, keeping it stored for later in the meantime. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They were invited. They gave a reason they weren't attending. You accepted their non-participation. Right, they were sent an invitation. When I get invitations, they are hung on the refrigerator as a reminder, and I have the decency to respond. The parents deserve everything they get. OP needs to tell the sisters the truth. The mom is spinning it to make it sound like they were shunned by their daughter. Bold of you to assume they even opened it after seeing OP's name. Wow, I didn't think of that. It makes perfect sense. I'm going with this. Good thinking. Not the a-hole. I'd be incredibly petty and just no contact your parents and your mom's family. See how they like being ignored? Congratulations to yourself and Lucas. May you always have happiness in each other. Yes, and what atonement is the mother supposed to do? Unless she can travel back in time and attend OP's wedding and graduations, there really is no way to atone. I'd keep the whole lot no contact. They don't add anything positive to her life. I would also inform everyone about what happened to your college fund. Exactly. There's no fixing this. Some things can't be undone, and this is one of them. There's no do-over for decades of neglect as a child. I would do as said above. No contact as they add nothing positive to your life, and inform relatives about your college fund. You don't need them now, and you've never trusted them to do the right thing by you anyway, if you were in a situation where you needed support. If your parents are embarrassed, though, they shouldn't have done it. It wasn't one mistake. It was decades of choices. You've got your grandpa, and you might find your paternal aunts to step up. Now they know, and you have your husband. Not the a-hole. I cannot comprehend this. Just go no contact. Honestly, after all these years, what do you expect will happen differently? Any kids they have will also be ignored and treated like they are toe jam also. They have had years to atone, and neither of them did. Dad is no better. Even worse if he realized how wrong it was, but still quietly sat by and let it happen. Next story. Am I the a-hole for uninviting my sister from our wedding after she gave out info about it to my fiancé's bio parents? Wedding is next weekend. My fiancé purposely did not tell her biological parents that she was engaged or anything about our wedding. Her biological parents never did anything wrong per se. My fiancé just doesn't view them as her family, and the topic makes her uncomfortable. A couple years ago, her birth mother tried to reach out to me and a few other members of our family on Facebook, and one message reached my sister, who decided to stick her nose where it did belong because she feels for my fiancé's mother. I went low contact with my sister after that. Sister was originally invited to our wedding mostly because my mom wanted it. However, we figured out last week that my sister had shared our wedding invitation and website with my fiancé's biological father. Her bio parents then bought something off the registry and sent along a note to our house. Sister's excuse is that we didn't tell her that she wasn't allowed to share that info and that there's nothing wrong with the gift. To me, this is common freaking sense, especially since you know the reason we don't talk to you unless we have to anymore. So I said sorry, but you're no longer coming. My mom is so upset and keeps insisting I'll regret it one day. My sister is trying to say she already made a monetary investment for shoes, hair, a makeup artist appointment, a hotel by the venue, etc. In my opinion, if she cared so much, then she would have thought about her actions. My fiancé is starting to break down because my mom called her crying and I said nope. Even if you're okay with it, I'm not. Kin doesn't do kin like that. And to be clear, I said my brother-in-law is welcome to come with my nieces because I don't want them to be left out of the party all their cousins get to go. Edited to add, I guess I didn't make this clear. My fiancé was adopted when she was a few months old. Her adoptive parents are the people she considers her parents, and they're very involved with the wedding and her life. Not a-hole. I think most people commenting have missed the point that, according to OP's post, they are her bio parents, not the parents who raised her, and only reached out to her 2 years ago, hence her having no relationship with them. I'd be upset with the betrayal OP's sister showed. She knew there was no contact or relationship between them and gave them all the info anyway. I met my biological mother and half-brother in late 2020. They aren't my family. I tried having a relationship with them. Sometimes things are not meant to be. I'd be livid at OP's sister. Be clearer to your obtuse sister. You invited people who are not invited. So now, we have to get security involved. Do you realize that my future parents-in-law are put in a weird situation because you were so uncouth, so vulgar, as to impertinently invite people to a sacred ceremony when you're not even hosting it? Who do you think you are? Your behavior is wildly inappropriate. We do not know what you'll do next, how you will next intrude and impose unwanted things in our lives, and our natural reaction is to distance ourselves from you. If she legit apologizes profusely, ease up and let her come, because maybe she is actually just clueless. If she's defensive, stand your ground, but those nieces aren't coming if she doesn't come. Luckily, we already had security because the venue requires it if you're serving liquor. But yeah, we are concerned about them trying to show up. I don't think my sister would, because it doesn't go along with her victim narrative if she makes a scene. She's definitely going to be vague posting the whole time though. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister with her wedding planning because she didn't include me as a bridesmaid? I, 28 female, have a younger sister, Lucy, 25 female, who is getting married in a few months. We've always been close, so I was really surprised when she didn't ask me to be a bridesmaid. Instead, she chose her friends and left me out. When I asked her about it, she said she wanted to keep her bridal party small and only included friends who have known her fiancé for a long time. I was hurt, but tried to respect her decision. Now, Lucy is overwhelmed with wedding planning and has been asking me a lot for help, from organizing her bachelorette party to making DIY decorations. I've been helping out here and there, but recently she asked me to take on more responsibilities, which would require a lot of time and effort. I told her that while I'm happy to help out occasionally, I can't commit to doing so much, especially since she didn't include me as a bridesmaid. Lucy got really upset and said I'm being petty and unsupportive. Our parents were also pressuring me to help her, saying that family should come first. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister with her wedding planning because she didn't include me as a bridesmaid? Now for the comments. Not a-hole. The stuff she's asking for help with is literally part of the bridal party's duties. She wanted close friends, she got close friends. Now they can demonstrate how close they are. This, because Opie was not included as a bridesmaid. She went on business as usual, and did not block out time to help as what sister is asking for is bridesmaid duties. Too bad, so sad. This is what sister wanted. It is not Opie's fault that sister has friends as crappy as she is, and they're not living up to their duties. Anyone complaining is free to help sister out. There is no requirement that a potential guest to a wedding has to jump through bridesmaids' hoops. Expect to be treated as you treat others. Sister knew this would be a snub of Opie. She cannot snub someone and then demand their time and efforts. If I were Opie, I would not sign myself up to be a ghost bridesmaid. Completely agree with everything you said. I just wanted to add, our parents are also pressuring me to help her, saying that family should come first. If family comes first, why didn't the parents say this to Lucy and pressure her into making Opie a bridesmaid? Opie, how much money do you make compared to the bridesmaid? Is it possible Lucy sees you as a free bank, which is why you're being asked to do this stuff instead of them? Family should come first, for you, but not your sister. Not a-hole. You are under zero obligation to help her. She gave roles to other people, but somehow wants the job to be done by Opie. Opie, stand firm and tell her to have her bridesmaids help her. Not a-hole.